Let's talk about, the season is, to say it didn't go the way you wanted it to is certainly an understatement, but I would think that when you decide to make that decision midway through the season that it's time to change head coaches, the way it went out the rest of the way, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the remainder of the season, the way it went was to be expected to a degree?
To me personally, no, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we would do better than we have. Again, I've never played the sport, only played one on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, looking back on everything we did, I just wonder if perhaps we made too many changes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all know in every sport that we follow, continuity is so important to making sure you night in, night out, you have the same people on the court, on the baseball field, whatever. And I'm just wondering if we made too many changes, because you look back on that and we had 3 or 4 new guys in the lineup almost every game.
Mm-hmm.
That's something, though, isn't it, that maybe not quite as much as it happened this year for the IceMen, but that's kind of the nature of the beast of minor league sports to an extent, isn't it, the turnover?
It shouldn't be to this extent, Jimmy.
Okay.
We had 54 players here this year, and that's way too many. And, of course, part of that was the fact that we did change coaches. We did change cultures. But as the season has wound down, I've called some of the teams around the league and asked, what's been their success factor. The one that we're looking at very closely is the Toledo organization. Last year, about this time, they were in last place, too. And this year, they're in first place.
Right.
They're even a couple points ahead of Fort Wayne. Mm-hmm. And I've known their general manager back to when he was a goaltender many years ago, and Nick Vitucci is his name. And Nick was very open, very candid with me. He waited to call me till after we played them last week.
Well, sure he did.
but Nick basically said the things that changed for them is they went from 2 affiliates to 1. They had Chicago and Detroit last year. Now they just have Detroit. And one of the big things that's been happening with their organization, well, there are a couple that really we haven't done, is that, number one, they have their own group of 5 or 6 unpaid scouts that are working in the United States and Canada, wherever, and they send weekly reports back to the Toledo organization about players that they think might be able to help them. And so they have an ongoing list in the event you have an injury, you have a call-up, that they can, at that moment you don't sit there and go, oh, my God, where are we going to find another goaltender? They've got those names. We honestly don't have that. So that's something we've already talked to Al about. That's something we will develop for this year. And secondly, they work with Detroit totally differently from how we worked with Ottawa this year, is that Ottawa signed players for us based on recommendations that Dwight Mullins gave us, that players that we thought could help us. And really 2 of the ones he gave us, I'll give Dwight credit, a goaltender named Cal Heater and a defenseman named Ty Wishart were both very good at the beginning of the year. And both of them left for Europe for better offers. And, that was part of our downfall. We didn't have those players to replace them right away. But the Detroit organization, their American League affiliate is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And they sign players that they feel can definitely help Grand Rapids. And if they don't make Grand Rapids, they go to Toledo. That was not the case with Ottawa. So that's another factor we're going to speak with them about at the end of the year, is just how we develop players differently. And then thirdly, both Toledo, Fort Wayne, the teams that are doing very well in our division, they have their own nucleus of players that they don't think are going to get called up. Those players are happy because they love being in Fort Wayne, Toledo, whatever. And that's one of our philosophies. We want to have a group of 5 or 6 guys, plus our own very strong goaltender, that we go into next year knowing they're going to be here. And then really whatever Ottawa sends us will be gravy.
COO Jim Riggs from the Evansville IceMen joining us in studio today. It's in the Crease talking some Evansville IceMen hockey. Ford and O'Brien, ESPN Evansville 105.3 and online, ESPNEvansville.com. How much interaction do you have with the players? And from your perspective, again, understanding that some of them are only here for a very short time and then they're moved on, or they are shipped off for what is perceived to maybe be a better player. What has been, from your perspective, there? Do you have that group of guys now that you're looking for? Is there at least 1 or 2 there that you think you can build on for the future?
There are. I think Al's been pretty candid. He thinks there's probably 5 or 6 guys that are currently here that he would like to bring to training camp next year. I mean, we've already brought in a lot of young guys recently. I think we have 5 college players right now, all with the intention of, can we see if they can play at this level? And if they can, then we hold the rights to those fellows, and we would bring them in the fall.
Well, one of the things, too, that comes about a little bit is face of a franchise may not be the right word, because at this level, they're not they're not around long enough to be like a Peyton Manning was to a Colts or something like that. But with that being said, you do have commercials in the area, things like that, where these guys do get some exposure. And when a name like a Kennedy or somebody that has been around for a little while goes away, is that something as a on the business side of it, is that something that you're just like, I hate to see that happen? Yeah, I know it's an athletic thing, which Kennedy actually would get called up and things like that, so maybe that's not the right example. But you know what I'm saying? When you get a name that has a name in the community and then is no longer there, is that something that kind of hurts maybe on ticket sales, business-wise?
I think in the offseason it does. We have a factor with hockey players that some of the other teams don't have, is that all the Canadian players, their visas run out. Mm-hmm. So they have to go back to Canada within 2 weeks after the season ends. Or I suppose they could go to Mexico and come back whenever they wanted. But that's another issue, right? That's another issue. That's another issue. I guess.
Jim Riggs, everybody.
I guess we shouldn't go into that, right?
I like that.
But
that station's down the hall.
We legally send our players back to Canada at the end of the year, and there's some of those guys you would love to have here all year round. Absolutely. So part of that nucleus that we're going to try to develop for next year, you'd love to have 2 or 3 American players that want to make Evansville their home. And then, yes, things like the home show that's coming up, the business expo that's coming up, places that we're going to be as an organization, we'd love to have those players there.
COO Jim Riggs from the Evansville IceMen joining us in studio. It's Ford and O'Brien, ESPN Evansville 105.3 and online, ESPNEvansville.com. Now, despite what the record suggests and how maybe the game has played out, the games rather have played out on the ice, you've got to be, I think, happy with the turnout from the fan base here in Evansville. It's been, from what I understand, pretty strong throughout the season.
It's been unbelievable for me, having worked for a number of organizations. I worked for a team in Memphis for 10 years where we had 9 very good years. One year we were 9-57-4.
Wow.
We won
it can be worse.
We won the championship the next year. Can I tell you what that record was? No. But ingrained in my brain forever is 9-57-4. Uh-huh. And your point is well taken, though. Yes, the next year we turned it around. Mm-hmm. We won the regular season championship, and then 2 years later we won the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it can turn around very quickly because of the nature of the game, and recruiting is the name of the game in this business. The attendance thing is unbelievable to me, that the fan base is so strong here, so supportive. I have to tip my hat to our front office people who have been doing this a while, Brian Vall, Bridget, people who have been doing the marketing for this team, that we try to make it a fun night out, whether we win or lose. And we hope people walk away and, the Superstars were there Sunday. We hope people are talking about that. Yes, we would have loved to win. But also, as Mr. Geary said Sunday at the final game, it's time for this organization to produce a winner for this city because the fan support has been so good. 10 games of over 6,000 fans this year. The 9,600 crowd for the infamous Star Wars night. Even Sunday we had over 6,000.
Yeah, I know. We try to get my wife and I try to take the kids to a few games. My son likes to go. Admittedly, I've learned more about hockey as this show has gone on, and we've talked to Coach Mullins every week, and we talked to Coach Sims and all that. And I'll tell you, too, I'm born and raised here in Evansville. I didn't realize there was such a hockey fan base in this area
I didn't either.
until, and you're from here as well, born and raised here as well. Minus the couple of years you spent up in Wisconsin, but
it was cold up there,
you
man.
came back home. But yeah, I didn't realize how big of a sport hockey is in this area until the IceMen came to town. And to just credit you and as you said, the front office and the organization, when you go to a game, the action on the ice, win or lose, it's just nonstop, and that's part of the excitement. But the things you guys do during downtime, during intermissions, Stephen Rickert does a fantastic job hosting the games with the crowd and all that stuff. There's always something going on that makes it, like you said, more than just a hockey game. It is an event. It is something to go do on a Friday or Saturday night or during the week whenever you guys happen to have a game.
That's what the organization, long before I got here, that was what they wanted to do, and they've done that very, very well. 3 memorable moments of this year have got to be Ryan O'Brien trying out with the team. Ryan O'Brien on the tricycle.
The tricycle.
Ryan
we got
O'Brien
wrong.
on the hamster ball.
Well, that's right. I was in a hamster ball, too.
We got the tricycle wrong, too.
I'm
I
almost
announced him a
afraid-
winner, and he actually lost by half a tire.
We saw the video evidence after the fact, and yeah, I think I did lose by half a tire.
You know, and that's the thing, too. I spent 5 years, I think it was 5 they were here with the Evansville Blue Cats, the indoor football team, from day one all the way through. The Vulivas who owned those the first year, there were like 16 owners. That was, I'll admit, that was a mess. Hot mess, as you like to say. Way too many owners. The Vuliva family took it on their own after that. Great people, incredibly nice people, deep pockets, everything it takes to have a minor league organization to give it a chance. Because anybody's been around minor league sports, it's not a retirement business. You're not going to make a ton of money in that. I tell you what, it's expensive to operate anything like that. But my point is they tried everything they could. They had good people in good places. Don Hess, the GM of the last couple of years, incredible guy. But they didn't win often enough, and the fan base just fell down. Now, I don't know if that's as much that indoor football is just not as exciting as hockey is to them. But you guys are doing something right. And Ryan said a lot of it. The game day, because I was involved internally with all the game day prep stuff and everything that goes on during the game. You guys do an incredible job of that. It's a fun time. It's very affordable. But you're doing something right when you can have a losing season like this and you still got butts in the seats.
Well, and also we have to credit the Ford Center people, too.
Yeah.
You got a great facility.
They do a very professional job over there. You watch the interaction of the management staff there, the changeover staff, because you look at some of those weekends, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
They go from there was one weekend I think they went basketball to hockey, then Miranda Lambert, then back to hockey, and then back to basketball for the Globetrotters or something. And, every presentation was first class.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I feel like there are brighter skies ahead for the IceMen.
Well,
I think I think it's coming.
That's certainly the plan. We're already in planning for next year, believe it or not, that we don't sit around in the summertime, as I say, and eat bonbons. Actually, the summertime is
what I do.
Okay, good.
It shows, doesn't it?
No, you look good.
Thanks. All right, I appreciate that. Man, I like this guy.
It's actually our busier time. I compare the summertime to maybe being a chef at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, where you have to, every night you got to come up with that $1 million meal for your customers. And during the season, it's like working at McDonald's because we have 36 games to churn out like you churn out Big Macs.
Right.
So that's the difference. And this time of year is the time where we do our planning for our promotions, our budget. And obviously, one of the big factors this year is making sure that we get the recruiting part of this right. And I know Al talked about that last week, I think, on your show.
He did, yeah.
That, as soon as the season's over, he's going to start hitting the recruiting trail. And for us, that's absolutely imperative that we know going into September we've got a strong nucleus to start the season.
Well, and that's the thing also that people may forget. This ECHL, which is a step up from where the IceMen were, this is only, the second or third season you've been a part of this league, right?
This league is harder than what they were in before. I was in the Central Hockey League for 11 years, and I wouldn't say it's easier to find players in that league, but the quality of player is so much different in this league. They are better.
Yeah, and now you have a direct affiliation with the NHL team, so that says a lot there.
So you have to really figure out how Ottawa is going to help us to their problems. They've had problems from their organization all the way down this year from injuries and call-ups. Their Binghamton team in the American League's not going to make the playoffs like us.
Right.
And Ottawa's fighting for the final playoff spot in the National League with a week left to go. So obviously they know they need to get better from Ottawa on down, and fortunately for us, that includes us.